15,000 years ago, somewhere in Eurasia. You wake up with one job: survive until nightfall. That is it. There is no house, no hospital, no fence, no emergency number. Your life is a loop of hunger, weather, injury, and things watching from the dark. You find food, you try not to lose it. You try not to become food. Then you sleep lightly, because the night belongs to animals with better ears, better noses, sharper teeth, and far more patience than you. And one night, around a small fire in the middle of nowhere, you hear something move just beyond the light, not close enough to see clearly, close enough to know it is there. You freeze. The fire cracks. The people beside you go quiet. And from the edge of the darkness, a pair of yellow eyes opens. A wolf. Now, at this distance, most wild animals would make a decision quickly. Run or attack. But this one does neither. It does not rush into the firelight. It does not vanish into the trees. It just stands there, watching. And for some reason, you do not throw the spear. That strange pause may be where the entire story of dogs begins. Because the story of how wolves became dogs is not a clean story. It is not a story of humans calmly inventing a new animal. It is not some perfect prehistoric plan where one clever hunter looked at an apex predator and thought, "You know what this needs to become? A creature that sleeps on my pillow and panics when I leave the room for 30 seconds. No. It was much messier than that. First, we need to destroy the version most people imagine. The classic story goes like this. A brave ancient human finds a litter of wolf pups. He takes them back to camp. He feeds them, raises them, trains them, and slowly, through patience and love, he creates loyal hunting companions. It sounds beautiful. It also, almost certainly, misses the real mechanism. Because a wolf is not a dog waiting for enough kindness. You can raise a wolf pup from birth. You can feed it, protect it, give it warmth, and let it grow up around humans. But underneath that experience is still an animal whose brain was built for wolf problems. Distance, hierarchy, territory, fear, risk, survival. A wolf may learn to tolerate a human, but that does not make it a dog. Zoos know this. Wildlife sanctuaries know this. Anyone who has worked closely with wolves knows this. The old idea that humans simply tamed wolves through courage and affection is the kind of idea that sounds better around a campfire than it works in real life. So if humans did not just decide to domesticate wolves, what actually happened? Here is the strange part. The first step may not have been humans choosing wolves. It may have been certain wolves choosing to come closer. Not because they loved us, not because they wanted to become pets, and definitely not because evolution had a plan. They came closer because around human camps, there was something rare in the Stone Age. Food that kept appearing in the same place. Bones, scraps, discarded animal parts, the leftovers of successful hunters, to a hungry wolf. That was not garbage. That was opportunity. But only a certain kind of wolf could take it. Not the most aggressive one. Not the most dominant one. Not the one most eager to fight. The wolf that survived near humans had to be slightly calmer than the others. Slightly less afraid of fire. Slightly less reactive to voices. Slightly more willing to stand at the edge of the light and wait. And that small difference changed everything. Because the wolf that could tolerate humans got food. The wolf that got food survived. The wolf that survived had pups. And some of those pups inherited the same strange advantage. They were not dogs yet. Not even close. But something had started. A predator had found a reason not to run from us, and humans had found a reason not to kill it. That was the first crack in the wall between two species. And through that crack, the dog began to enter the world. The wolf at the edge of the fire did not need to become friendly all at once. It only needed to be a little less afraid than the others. That is how evolution often begins. Not with a dramatic transformation, with a tiny difference that happens to matter. Around human camps, that difference mattered a lot, because humans were becoming better hunters, and better hunters leave behind something every scavenger understands immediately. Bones, scraps, animal parts too hard, too small, too risky, or too useless for humans to bother with. To a human, it was waste. To a wolf, it was a reason to come back tomorrow. And that changed the rules. A normal wolf could survive by hunting, scavenging, traveling, competing, and avoiding danger. But a wolf that could stand near human smell, human noise, smoke, firelight, and sharp wooden spears had access to a new food source. Not once, again and again. That matters. Because in the wild, reliable food is power. But this opportunity came with a filter. The most aggressive wolves were not necessarily the winners here. A wolf that rushed too close might get killed. A wolf that panicked too easily would never reach the scraps. A wolf that treated every human as an immediate threat would stay hungry at the edge of the territory. The winners were stranger. They were the wolves with lower fear, lower stress, more curiosity. The ones that could wait in the dark without exploding into flight or violence. They were not tame. They were not pets. They were simply the wolves whose nervous systems could tolerate the most dangerous restaurant on earth. And because they got food, they had a better chance of surviving. Because they survived, they had a better chance of reproducing. And because they reproduced, some of their pups carried the same, slightly unusual temperament, generation after generation. The camp selected for one thing without anyone realizing it: calmness around humans. Not beauty, not loyalty, not cuteness, just the ability to stay close enough to eat and not close enough to die. That is the cold logic behind the beginning of dogs. But the truly strange part is what happens when you select for calmness. Because tameness does not seem to travel alone. In the 1950s, a Russian geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev began an experiment with silver foxes. On the surface, he was studying fox breeding for the fur industry. But what he was really testing was much deeper. He wanted to know what would happen if you selected animals for one trait only: tameness. Each generation, the foxes were tested for how they responded to humans. The ones that showed less fear and less aggression were allowed to breed. The others were not. That was the whole rule. No one selected for floppy ears. No one selected for curled tails. No one selected for spotted coats or rounder faces or dog-like behavior. And yet, after only a few generations, the foxes began to change. Their ears softened, their tails curled, their coats developed patches, their faces became rounder. They barked differently. They sought human attention. They began to look and act disturbingly familiar. Like dogs, this is why the wolf story becomes so strange. Because if selecting for a calmer mind can also pull the body along with it, then the wolves around ancient camps may not have needed thousands upon thousands of years before they began to look different. Their behavior changed first, then their bodies may have followed. Not because humans designed them, not because wolves understood what was happening, but because evolution found a shortcut: choose the animals that fear humans less. And you may accidentally begin changing the whole animal. That is what domestication syndrome means, in simple terms. Tameness can come as a package deal. A calmer stress response can be linked to changes in development, appearance, behavior, and reproduction. You select for one door, and several other doors open behind it. So those wolves at the edge of the fire were not just stealing scraps. They were entering a new evolutionary machine. Human camps became the filter. Garbage became the reward. Fear became the test. And the wolves that passed that test became something no wolf had ever been before. Useful. Because once humans realized these almost wolves could warn them when danger approached. Follow trails. Hear movement in the dark. And smell things humans could not. The relationship changed speed. The wolves that liked humans survived better in human company. The humans that kept wolves survived better in the wilderness. And from that point on, this was no longer just scavenging. It was the beginning of a partnership. And once a partnership begins, both sides start changing. At first, humans may not have thought of these animals as companions. They were useful. They heard what humans could not hear. They smelled what humans could not smell. They noticed movement before the camp did. A wolf near the fire was no longer just a scavenger. It was a warning system with teeth, and in a world where one missed sound in the dark could cost everything that mattered. So humans began making choices. Maybe not carefully at first. Maybe not with any plan. But the choices were there. Feed this one. Drive that one away. Let this calmer one stay close. Keep the pups that do not panic around people. And slowly, selection came from both directions. The wolves that tolerated humans survived better near humans. The humans that tolerated wolves survived better in the wild. That is the part most people miss. This was not just humans shaping dogs. Dogs were also shaping the kind of humans who made it through. Because dogs are not just wolves that learned better manners. Their brains changed. A dog does something that sounds simple until you realize how strange it is. If you point at something, a dog looks where you are pointing. Not at your hand, at the thing your hand means. That is not normal in the animal kingdom. Even wolves raised around humans do not do this nearly as naturally. But domestic dogs, even very young ones, are unusually tuned to human signals. They read our gestures. They study our faces. They look to us for information. And then there is the eye contact. For a wolf, a long, direct stare can mean danger. It can be a challenge, a warning, a problem. But a dog looks into a human face and finds something else. Meaning, attention, connection. When a dog looks at you, and you look back, both brains can release oxytocin. One of the chemicals involved in bonding. Think about how strange that is. A carnivore descended from wolves became biologically wired to bond with the face of another species. And it did not stop there. Dogs developed a tiny facial muscle above the eyes that helps create that soft, sad, almost helpless expression humans find impossible to ignore. Puppy dog eyes. It feels emotional. But underneath the emotion is evolution. Dogs became better at making humans care. You thought you were choosing your dog, but your dog's ancestors spent thousands of years evolving into something humans would want to choose. By around 10,000 years ago, dogs were already deep inside human life, not just near camps. Inside the human story. We know this because dogs begin appearing in burials, not thrown away as waste, not treated simply as tools, placed beside humans. Sometimes carefully, sometimes close enough that the arrangement feels personal. That means something. In a brutal world of hunger, cold, injury, and short lives, humans were spending emotion on dogs. They grieved them. They buried them. They kept them close even in death. So when a modern person buys a ridiculous tiny coat for a ridiculous tiny dog, that impulse is not as modern as it looks. The object is new. The feeling is ancient. And then humans took the process even further. Once dogs were fully inside our world, we began shaping them for jobs. Hunters, herders, guards, sled pullers, companions. Over time, the wolf body was stretched, shrunk, softened, sharpened, slowed down, sped up, and rearranged into forms evolution would never have produced on its own. A greyhound built for speed, a dachshund built low to the ground, a Great Dane towering beside a human, a bulldog shaped like a sad loaf of bread and somehow still convinced it is the main character. But beneath all that variety is the same ancient deal: stay with us and survive, understand us, and thrive. Today, dogs sleep in our homes, sit in our cars, appear in our photos, and occupy space in our families that no other animal has ever truly matched. And the strangest part is how normal it feels. None of this was planned. A wolf came near a fire for scraps. It was a small decision, a hungry decision. But evolution is patient. That one step toward the light became a relationship that outlasted empires, languages, and entire civilizations. So the next time a dog falls asleep on your feet, or stares at you while you eat, or loses its mind at the sound of your keys in the door, remember what you are really seeing. Not just affection, not just training, 15,000 years of mutual evolution. We did not just create dogs. In some meaningful sense, dogs help create us.